and welcome to the Whisky Trials. We're going to do a Whisky Talks live, and tonight I am joined by the one and only Greg's Whisky Guide, and we're going to talk about a few different things. We're open to input as well on the chat, so if anybody's here with us on the chat, tell us what you'd like us to talk about, and we'll see if that's something that we would like to do. In general, we've got a few different kind of topics that we want to talk about, but let's just get Greg right in, and we'll get the show on the road. Hopefully, you can all see Greg's lovely face. Hello, Greg.
Hi Neil. Hi everyone. Good night.
How are we doing?
Well, we're trying to do good, let's say, despite all the things going on here and there.
I know it's been a big week for whiskey, hasn't it? It's been a big news week, let's say.
Yeah, lots of things going on and lots of rebranding. I'm surprised how many there are.
Yeah.
We'll probably talk about it later on, but there's one I'm really fearing, I have to say, is the Anok one, because it belongs to the same company as the previous one, Old Pulteney and Balblair. And everybody, and especially me, who hasn't got this bottle that I tried and I love, the Anok 24, I'm almost sure it's going to jump in price.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
like
I mean,
Roy said recently as well.
yeah. I mean, we had a little chat before we came online, and there's so many at the moment that seem to be rebranding. So, like you said, we'll probably touch on it, but the ones that stick out in my head that people get really quite emotional about it, don't they? And it was the Ben Romach. It was
Ben Romach,
the
Aaron did divide
Singleton.
a lot of people.
Yeah, well, I kind of thought the Aaron one was well accepted. The Ben Romach really got people's backs up for some reason.
Yeah, I agree. And there's the two latest ones, if I'm not mistaken, is Ben Riach and Glenturret.
Yeah, a lot of people were annoyed about the Ben Riach one as well for some reason, but yeah, I think I quite like it.
I'm annoyed for other reasons than packaging, I have to say, but we'll probably come to this at a moment.
Yeah, can I just check? So we've got some people in the chat.
I cannot see anything about.
Yeah, Greg's kind of running on one screen.
Private. So I maybe cut this. I don't know what you think, Neil, because it's only a chat between us two, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna cut it unless you give me a sign you have something that's going on, for instance, technically.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. So what I was going to do was just look at the chat, and I just want to make sure that everybody can hear you, because
sound and image.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that everybody can hear Greg. Can somebody give me a shout out to say, Sarah, if you're there watching, give me a shout out that I can see both of you. Greg's volume is a tad quiet. Okay. So, Greg,
it's the issue with my camera. I cannot. I'm trying to bring on the Thai mic, but the first attempt didn't work. So I'm gonna go back to it again for my next videos, hoping the sound of the cam will be cut to let the Thai mic work. But I'm not sure I'll manage it.
Okay.
We'll see.
So, what are you using then for your mic?
I have the mic from the webcam.
Okay.
It's a Logicom webcam, around 60 euros cost, something like that.
I wonder if there is something we can do. So, if you look at your Zoom settings, yeah, and you see the little microphone down at the bottom left.
Let me wait a minute. I lost the screen. Oh my. I see only in small. I don't know why. Okay.
So the bottom left, you should see a little microphone style thing with a little arrow on the side of it. If you click on that arrow and go to audio settings.
Okay, audio settings. I have the micro, but I don't have the I don't have the right click, so I don't know if I can
Just
to
left
work it
click.
out.
Yeah, just click on the little arrow next to the thing and get into audio settings.
Doesn't do nothing.
No.
Not sure I'm on the good. It says mute. I don't know why. Oh,
Oh,
parameters.
there's a little
Okay.
the little arrow next to it.
The
Though, yeah?
volume I can. Let me see.
So you see there, once the audio settings are open, there's a microphone setting. If you just
Okay.
make sure that little bar is like absolutely full.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Is it better right now? Right now? No.
Do you see your microphone bit though, where it says test mic, and you've got a choice of which mic that you're using?
Yeah.
And
mic.
there's a
1,
volume.
2, 1, 2. Yeah.
Volume
It
bit.
doesn't. Oh, it's very loud now.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
So I'd have that microphone. If you've got your input level to full, I think that's hopefully going to help.
It doesn't let me put it into full. I don't know why. Let me see. I'm sorry, guys.
It's all right. This is kind of what I do on a day-to-day basis. We'll do like a little IT thing first.
Well, it doesn't let me adjust it. I'm sorry. It's been maybe lower than before even. Oh, it goes beyond. It goes. Oh, no. Oh, I'm gonna.
There is some other things we can try as well, but I'll see what people are saying in the chat to see if.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm gonna start again.
Yeah, everybody's saying that you're a little bit quiet.
Okay, it was automatic.
Hey,
Now,
that's better.
I did it at the max.
Okay, nice.
Hope it's good now.
Yeah, that's better. I can definitely hear you better. Okay, so let me just do. If you want to pour yourself a drink, Greg, whatever you're going to pour. What are you going to pour?
Yeah, I think we got the same, but not the same bottling and
Right,
not the same packaging.
I'll do that one as well. Then I'll just finish this one, which I'm.
Yeah. Take your time.
Very much
How
enjoying.
many people are watching right now?
We've got a few in. We have 14 people in just now. So let me just
fantastic.
Let me do some shout outs. So we've got Whiskey Pilgrim, we've got Lee J. Brown, Whiskey Novice, Laid Lawfi, that's my Sarah, she's just in the next room. Jimmy Legg, Multi Mission, Tony Evans, Whiskey Novice, did I see him already? Chris Amir.
Oh, I forgot to put the coins. The coin.
We got Russell.
Aquavite that...
Hello, Russell.
Okay. Hello.
Yep. So we got a few. Sorry if I missed anybody. You've got coins. What coins have you got?
Oh yeah, I don't have them here now. It's remote. I'm sorry. No, I won one coin, and Krasimir said it's for Greg, so it's an Aquavite sniping coin.
Right. Okay.
But I removed it because I didn't know what to do exactly, and I forgot to bring it back. Scapa, no, Singleton. Family, okay. It's a bit the same color as the Scapa. The new box.
So, I mean, it kind of ties into one of the topics that we're talking about. Is Singleton is one of the things that's changed.
Can you show your bottle so we see the difference of the packaging?
Just pour myself one.
Yeah, sure. Ah, yeah, it's bigger now. They made it much bigger.
Yeah.
With the letters and... Okay.
I think that's what they try and do now, is make it much more easy to see on the shelf, I think. Right.
From what time is mine?
Okay, guys, so obviously we're going to do some serious whiskey chat at the moment, and we're open to you guys want to talk about whatever, so post some stuff in the chat, what you'd like us to speak about, and we'll join in with you guys in the chat. But we are going to start off, I think, the night with chatting about whiskey collecting. So if you haven't already seen my video, go and check it out, obviously after this. I'm presuming most of you have seen it. The whiskey collecting video was a really fun one to do, because it was one that I'd thought about for a while. It's a very interesting topic in the way that you kind of, some people just take it for granted, like, oh, I'm just collecting whiskey, it's a collection. Other people are dead against it, collecting. They hate the term being called a collector. They just see it as a choice that they've got. If you were to say that they were a collector or a hoarder, because they might have like 10 bottles of like a certain bottling, so they've got the same one, then they really take offense, because they see it as well, not a collection for them, but a something that they're going to drink and they like it, so they've stockpiled a little bit of it, and that's fine with them. But to me, there's still a collecting aspect there, and there's still a little bit of a hoarding aspect. And no matter what you say, if you've got 10 cases of this, or 20 bottles, 10 bottles, 6 bottles, whatever, you're taking the opportunity of somebody else to enjoy that away.
I
So
agree.
that's something that was something that was playing on my mind, and I started thinking
Well,
about the different kind of collectors and everything. So I put the
yeah,
video together, and there's obviously people in the middle and all the rest of it, but I came up with those kind of four, and yeah, it's been interesting. The one of the other interesting things is the conversation that it started on places like Facebook and Instagram and all the rest of it. So that's what we're going to talk about. Greg, what
yeah.
is your opinion on
I'm not.
collecting? Are you a collector, Greg?
I don't know. I answered it, but as I seen it a while ago, I'm not sure of what I said exactly. But and yeah, your four categories. I don't remember exactly. And hoarder, I don't know what is the word hoarder in French. What does it mean? But if you can rephrase it, maybe in simpler words for the French, I am hoarder. What that means for you?
Yeah, so a hoarder is somebody who essentially would buy up cases and cases just for themselves, whether they're going to,
Oh, for themselves, not
yeah,
to flip.
not to
Okay,
flip. I
okay.
mean, it's really just about ownership. So if I hoard something, it means that I've got a lot of it.
Honestly, I have been meeting a lot of people who collect, and I have never met someone who has 10 references of the same whiskey that is not a flipper.
Yep.
So they can have two or three or four maximum. I rarely see someone have 10 of the same reference exactly.
Yep.
Um,
There's somebody in
and
the
then,
chat
yeah,
that might have whiskey straight Al's in the chat. He's a bit of a
oh,
hoarder,
hi.
isn't he?
Except maybe the doc, but
Yeah.
about some specific brands. What
Uh-huh.
I see, what I met and understood and watched and everything for so far is it's difficult to summarize this quickly, but the thing is when you have a lot of bottles, like me maybe, and you're a human being, you cannot get drunk every day and drink everything or you're dead, and you have to be responsible. So that means you won't drink them every day, and it can be a while until you try this or that behind me.
Yeah.
You 6 months may pass, or 1 year or so. I have a good collector friend who has even a computer that has a parameters, automatic parameters that say you did try this one 6 months ago. Next one you didn't try for a long time is this one. So today you have to try this one. And I said, oh, what is that? Are you following the rules all the time? Not always, he said.
Oh wow.
Because he had 1,000 bottles almost. So,
Yeah.
uh,
And
but
it's actually one of
what
the
I,
interesting
yeah,
things that comes out of collecting, isn't it? Is that you get a bit of decision paralysis, I find sometimes. So you'd be like, you've got so
yeah,
many
yeah,
different
yeah. And
things, so many different ranges. You're like, what do I want? What am I going to drink?
and the very frustrating thing for me is I live in the attic, and I did have the collecting fever at the time, which is like Ralphie said once, it's not good in the absolute, because you deprive yourself of many things of life you should do maybe instead.
Yep.
That is going on holidays, that is offering things to people, your relatives, etc., investing in something that's good for your body and soul, not necessarily alcohol and stuff. But also, I cannot be too personal in this, but sometimes it fills a hole. Sometimes it come across in the good moment for you to get interested in something because you have to forget something else, or to, how can I say that? Or just because you love it and you're discovering a new world and you want to know everything about it and you're too hungry. And sometimes you push the things a bit too far. It's the problem of collecting is going beyond your money. One of the biggest issues. Ralphie said that very well in several videos. Then also the problem me with the term of collecting is for some, collecting means you never open your bottles. And for others, that means you're having quite some, but you drink them.
Yeah.
So it's a bit, I don't know in which category exactly I am.
I think you said you were somewhere in the middle of a couple of them.
But this has changed. This has changed this recent years because of some health issues and some other issues that are more general that I don't want to talk about, that touches politics and stuff. We don't know how the future will be. So, and in my case, I almost died a month ago. So I could have. So when I have my cerebral, I forgot the name in English, I'm sorry. Cerebral vascular thing accident. Well, forget it. That is to say, you also can go on the road and there's a car that crushes you and it's over.
Yeah.
So I decided recently to open all my bottles, almost all, and to leave only a very few ones that could replace others, even if it's not the same distillery in terms of profile. Because I don't know if at the end of the day, in 20 years, I will still be there, or 10 years. So what the hell I'm going to do with this bottle if it's closed and remote in the shelf? But yeah, what I want to do, most frustrating for me is that I cannot display all my collection in a single wall.
Yeah.
They're all over the place.
Yeah.
So the easiest thing and the laziest thing is to say, okay, I'm going to grab this, this, or this, but you always grab the same. So it's not a good idea. And also I have the samples. So there's a conflict between having all these samples people send you generously. Sometimes, okay, it swaps, but it's still generous, or the companies may send you as well, which leads us to another debate. And
sure does.
The conflict is between, shall I taste and then review the samples first or the bottles? And so I try to alternate between the two according to the mood, the needs, also people who wants feedback, or I don't know. Yeah, maybe often it's the mood. And also I have scheduled some reviews on videos, for instance, or on my website, but I cannot always stick to my program.
Yeah,
because it's too big and it's too far in advance.
That was one of the things I was actually wanting to talk about, wasn't it? Was the
yeah, go ahead.
Was I, okay. I mean, we've kind of touched on the collecting thing a little bit, and the fact that it definitely annoys people, and what you were saying there was, I think, why I tried to do some kind of classification, like different kinds of collector.
No, it's nice. It's
because it's not just like one person like grabbing all the bottles and then never selling them, or grabbing them and then flipping them. That's not necessary. There is different types of collector, right? So I just kind of wanted to highlight that.
Then also, why are you collecting and what are you collecting? Because I know some people who are famous, for instance, for having, I don't know, 500 or 600 Lafroigs, but only Lafroig distillery ones. While some other will do only Isla whiskeys. Some other will do only bourbons, US bourbons. Some will stick to a distillery or a region or a country. or some who has a big wallet now only to close distilleries, which is difficult.
Yeah. So
Me, when I started, if you ask me, when I started, I wanted to know every single distillery from Scotland and to buy the cheapest ones and going on little by little, maybe to buy the ones that were less um, that were accessible when I found a good price. And the reason behind that often was, and it's even harder today, because when I was going into bars with friends to discover whiskey, simple as that, the price of the dram was most of the time the half of the full bottle in supermarket. So I said, why am gonna buy me let's say 15 euros, I say it by chance, this while I can have this for 30. So I was waiting to have 30 to buy the bottle. But then when you don't know much about whiskey, you go on the devices of now it's internet, but for in my time beginning it was books.
mm-hmm.
But also I have to say sometimes you collect also because the bottles are beautiful, even if you're not sure it's good or you don't have feedback. We have to think that it's a different time in which I started, and I feel older now saying that. It started in the late 90s, and it's a totally different time than now. There were lots of incredible closed distilleries bottling available in the specialized shops and sometimes in supermarket. I remember to have seen a Brora, Port Ellen, etc. in a supermarket. And there were maybe 170 or 80. I said, oh, that's very expensive. Oh, probably not worth buying.
Yeah.
And now when you see the price and my praise for these. So yeah, depends what you want to, why you're collecting, and also your mode of collecting. And for me, if I can try before I buy, I'm always happy. Then sometimes I have to say the samples, especially in the shows, there is a suspicion I have for some time this is not the same bottle that's going to go on the shelves than the demonstration one. And I have, alas, a few examples of that, which we were several to be crazy about a whiskey. And sometimes the bottle was even not disclosed. There was just a sticker on it saying it's a new bottle, but it wasn't branded yet, packaged. And then we go back to several weeks ago in the shop, and we say, oh, this is the one from the show. Yes, yes. And I say, oh, why the cask number is different? Or why the ABV is a bit different?
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's because they changed last minute, but it's the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, is it? And sometimes even the same, and you don't feel the same sensations. Then, of course, reservation in tastings in shows are something real as well. But
so it's a good point that I didn't really pick up on that much in my video, was the kind of people collecting because, well, the bottles look nice, and I think that kind of I might have touched on it in terms of the sort of collectors that nobody likes, which essentially are like the hoarders. But it's like you buy a bottle because it looks nice and you put it up on the shelf and you never drink it.
I can understand that. So some people do that with cheap bottles. There are cheap bottles that are beautiful. It's not necessarily luxury things, but of course, there are bottles that are beautiful and very expensive, and there are people, especially with a high income, and sometimes people in their professional life and also in their state of mind, they always feel like they have to demonstrate they are important, and they have to show off a beautiful bottle in a glass
shelving and stuff,
shelf, which it is obvious, and I saw interviews of people like that, they will never drink it. But it's just when they have guests, oh, you see, I have this.
Yeah, exactly.
And I saw a sale for 18th century cognac, for instance. And I don't say every Russian is like that. Please don't kill me. But there was a Russian collector that bought for 25,000 euros an 18th century cognac bottle. And it was filmed in French TV, the auction. And a French collector came to see him and said, "Oh, please, sir, I have the other vintages that surrounds the one you bought. Are you sure you don't want to sell it to me?" And he said, "No. And at least can you tell me if you're going to open it?" "Oh, no, of course not." So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, bottles are made to be opened. So I can understand you're frightened with some references that are expensive now. You're not sure to open them. And I
Yeah.
have a good example of this with a friend who had a Karizawa 1967, which I displayed in the, I don't have the bottle, but I tried it, that I displayed in my 15 exceptional whiskeys video. And I met the guy. In fact, I met him when he bought the bottle, but he hadn't tried the bottle. So it was pure theoretical. And based on other vintages he tried, younger ones, he said, "I want this bottle." It was in 2011. The problem is the bottle at the time was 239 euros for a 41 years old Karizawa. It was a very good price at this time. And he hesitated to open it also because he bought other ones. So must have now 20 bottles probably of different vintages. And that one he hesitated because he saw the price jump up to 25,000 euros.
Yeah.
So at some point before the peak, he said, "Okay, I love whiskey. I want to buy other whiskeys in my life. With this one, I can even buy me a car if I like."
Yeah.
So second hand or what, I don't know. So he said, "Okay, I'm going to sell it." In that case, it doesn't shock me. In other cases where people will see a shelf with 10 times the same bottle, will buy it to resell it immediately on eBay and elsewhere, this shocks me. Because like you said very well earlier on, it's not only they make money with it and they will never drink it, but also they will avoid other people's to get at least one bottle. Maybe another trick interesting to know for people, and many do that now, you can buy also shared bottle. I don't know the word exactly in English. You can be 4 or 5 people.
Yeah.
Well, better be 6 than 5. And you can divide the bottle, and the most fetishist of them will keep the bottle itself, and the other ones will have samples.
Yeah.
But this is the only way for some to get very expensive stuff. And that was the guys from Malt Reviews on YouTube do. There are 2 people that are collecting and they're buying together almost everything. So they divide by 2 every very collecting bottle. And I think it's interesting to do that. Whiskey in the Six and Jeremy and others do that as well.
Yeah.
Our fellow YouTubers.
Yeah. It's funny, I was actually thinking about creating a little website where we could all, the sort of whiskey community could get together and actually club together for different bottles and, choose the person that splits it up and all the rest of it.
There are already a lot of things like that. And the most important reference website about collecting is WhiskyBase, you know that. And WhiskyBase, they are 500 bottles reviewed there. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And you can almost find everything. I have maybe 2 or 3 bottles that doesn't fit in there because it's only what people post that are figured in WhiskyBase. You have to know that. If nobody posts the X or A or B bottle you have, you will never see it, and maybe you will think it doesn't exist or what. But no, it does exist. Simply nobody has posted it yet.
Yeah.
And also sometimes warning, the informations are not correct. Because it's individual that puts the information, and not all the time the people who run the website have the time to check everything. And that's why, for instance, you showed me a Barry Bross bottle. People mistake on some bottles I have, and I said, "What is this? It's not the good range. It's not the good year, etc." So
Yeah.
I had to ask for correction.
Yeah.
But
Definitely.
sometimes we mistake ourselves because it's sometimes difficult to date a bottle, which is another issue in whiskey collecting and reviewing.
Yeah. So I'm keeping up. I'm trying to keep up with the comments here,
Yeah.
and we've got a lot of people saying essentially, whatever they buy, they're going to drink. Other people. So we've got
And share with
yeah,
your
and share, of
friends.
course. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, goes without saying, really. I mean, the community is great for that. So I think it was Alan was saying that essentially collectors are just custodians, and if they sell it, then it just moves on to being another custodian. And I kind of wonder if some collectors think of themselves as like almost like historians. They're like museum keepers. They keep their little select
Oh,
ones because they know they're going to sell them. But the great thing about it is that, for instance, like I think I highlighted this in my video. If you're 16 right now, you don't know about whiskey. You've got no idea about it, but this like one of the most amazing whiskey comes out when you're 16, like the perfect whiskey almost. It's amazing.
when you're
You're
16, you don't have the right to buy it. I'm
exactly
sorry.
so you're never going to taste it, and you're probably
So
not
it must
interested
be
in
a
whiskey
gift.
anyway. Nobody's interested in whiskey when they're 16, I don't think. So
Oh, they
it's going to
might. It
take
can be,
like
but
a few years down the line before you're interested in whiskey, and then when you are interested in whiskey, maybe that comes to light. This bottle comes to light. It comes out in an auction somewhere, and you're like, wow, I've heard about this. This is like the most amazing whiskey, and that person actually has a chance to get their hands on it and to drink it. Now, of course, they need to probably
have you
be fairly well off to buy it or whatever, but you never know. You might get a good deal. So there is
have you
that good aspect, that's kind of silver lining,
Yeah,
if you will,
sure,
of
always
collecting.
good or bad. Have you heard of this story of this young guy, if I'm not mistaken, who was offered by his father every vintage of Macallan 18 years
Yeah, and he sold it and bought a house.
and yeah, he sold them all.
Yeah,
It was a father's gift.
yeah,
Also, I met a guy once, maybe 15 years ago, in the supermarket, and we spoke about whiskey. It was an old guy, older than me, and we talked about Springbank. And he said, "Oh, you know what? I bought a cask of Springbank. At this time, there was a lot of share in the beginning of, I don't know now, but cask share and cask offers. Even in the boxes of the bottle, I have one, an old bottle with a cask offer of Springbank. Can you imagine that? And the guy bought it for later on his son when he'll be 18 to not the cask himself. The cask was at Campbelltown to ask the distillery to bottle all the cask or will be left for him. So wow,
yeah.
what a gesture!
I mean, I mean, if you said to me, you can either have a house or you can have 18 bottles of 18-year-old Macallan. Honestly, I wouldn't even need to think twice about it. I'd be like, scrap that Macallan, give me the house. I
Yeah, me
mean, I'm
too.
not a massive Macallan fan as it is anyway, so um, yeah, easy decision for
And
me to
then
make.
there's Macallan and Macallan. As I always say, this before let's say 2010 and after, something like that.
Yeah. Okay, so here's
Uh,
the big question, Greg.
ah, let,
How
there we
many
go.
bottles do you think you have?
Oh, it's not I think, I know.
Oh, right, you've got a spreadsheet, I
But,
bet.
but do you think I'm going to tell you? No, I'm sorry. Because
Oh, right, you've
there's
got a
a
book. Right, you've got a book.
there's a
So
thief issues. There's other different classification. There's a thief issues always on about collecting and stuff. And Like I said, and I repeat it for them especially, all my most precious bottles are
No.
either opened or already sold because I had money issues. So there's no super collector stuff that
Yeah.
would be closed that I can grab and sell it immediately. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Well, I will answer you because, especially for you and everybody else listening, I will give you a poetic answer, let's say. If I wanted to drink a different whiskey every day of the year, I could.
Okay. Well, that gives us
And maybe more.
a pretty decent idea of what you've got. I think. I mean, I've got no qualms. I mean, I've got crossbows and stuff, so I'm quite happy if anybody wants to try and rob me, they'll be getting shot. So I can quite happily say that I've got. I think I haven't. I've not counted them, but I must be in the realms of between 50 and 70 bottles, and
It's good because there's a good turning of
most of them are
what you
open.
can try.
And actually, this is a really good segue into my next section, or into our next talking point. So, most of my bottles are open, and most of my bottles have a tiny amount left in them, like
Mm,
a nip or two. Actually, it's a good segue into a couple of things that we want to talk about,
I
um,
hear you. I
which
hear you.
is like preservation as well, right? So, but I just want to touch on this briefly. I don't want this to be a massive talking point, and we'll get on to the rest of the stuff. But all these bottles that I've got with just like a tiny amount in them, there's a reason for this, and it's because of Whiskey Tube. It's because I'm a reviewer. It's because I'm thinking I'm drinking this bottle, it maybe goes down too fast, and I'm like, oh, I'll put this to the side, and I'll get to it at some point. I'll review it at some point. But of course, they build up and they build up and they build up because you can't
And the
review as much as you
profile of the
buy.
whiskey changes.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously I'm probably drinking them faster than I'm reviewing them, and obviously I've got Sarah helping me drink them as well. So there's two
Mhm.
of us drinking a bottle, uh, not just me. So
This is beautiful to be able,
yeah,
sorry, to share
to be
it
able to
with your
share it.
partner.
Yeah, I mean it was Sarah that got me into whiskey anyway. So but
Mhm.
so the talking point I want to discuss then is the Whiskey Tube reviewing. Is it a curse in terms of the pressure to sort of keep samples or keep bottles? I don't know about you, Greg, but for me,
Mhm.
I'm constantly putting pressure on myself to put out more content, and the more pressure I put
Yeah,
on myself, the less content I put out. So
yeah, exactly. It's a
it's
question that's not even often debated, so thank you for the question. I feel even more pressure because I've started to try whiskey 20 and so maybe 22 now years ago. But I start noting, I don't say sorry, reviewing, but noting for myself only after my first festival. That means 2004. And at the beginning, it was just 5 or 6 sheets. And then in 2011, when I tried to publish my book, it was 600 pages.
yeah,
And now I'm up to 3,700 or so because I counted tastings. But
yeah,
that doesn't mean as much as reviewing and as much as finished reviews ready to be published and also translated, which is another weight on me that I have
yeah,
that many don't have because it's a demand and also because I'm torn between, and the same for the YouTube channel, between the French version and English version, and it's very hard for me.
of
I'm
course,
more confident to write and speak in French about whiskey because I can bring more nuances, while I will be stopped at some point of the vocabulary, not only necessary about the aromas and flavors, but sometimes of the way of talking about it.
yeah,
But to answer your question, the problem is self-pressure
mm-hmm,
uh, because um, how can I say it fairly? There's many people who blog about whiskey, and kudos to them, because we need these guys. But they don't necessarily, sometimes they write only about one try of a whiskey,
Yeah.
and they don't have the bottle, etc. Or the sample is very small. It's okay with that, but what is the and I forgot to search for translations prior to that, sorry. Step backward, something like that. Where is the step backward on the whiskey you have?
Yeah.
When people are gonna watch you to decide if they're gonna buy or not the bottle. So for me, when it is possible, it's better to try it 2 or 3 times before reviewing it. And also
Totally.
the websites where the text of the tasting of the blogs is very raw. There's nothing, there's no bold characters, no colors, no organization. It's all raw. So yeah, it's very easy to do that. I could, but I don't want. I have to organize things. I have to search for background, historical background. This is my thing. If I was like everybody else, I won't maybe, I will be not maybe satisfied. But
Yeah.
of course, if I wasn't going to double check what is the version I'm trying exactly, what is the distillery, etc., I can do much faster and publish every day. I just say, okay, I try this, I found this, and
Yeah.
it doesn't mean it will be badly done, because there are people very good at that.
Yeah,
Because
you're
the
pretty much
sense-
describing how I do the videos. Yeah.
No, because people are, there's some people that are very good at sensing what is the strength and the weakness of a whiskey just by one try. So I don't blame these people. That's not what I meant.
Yeah.
But what I meant in me, I'm slowed down because I have self-pressure on my 200 or so samples and my more bottles.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
Then
when
also there's some parts, sorry, there are also many reviews I have that I have done but are not published nowhere, because it takes an awful lot of time. And I have a full-time job, and sometimes I'm tired when I go back home and I don't have the energy to do it.
Of course, yeah, and this is one of the things is I mean, most of us have got full-time jobs. I do as well, and the whole thing is that I do have this pressure that when, especially when I've bought like a new whiskey as well. I don't know if anybody else has got this. Is not even if I'm just reviewing it, that I've got to take notes on it. The taking notes is a pressure as well, and it can be, it's like a double-edged sword.
Sheet.
Yeah. So it's like, wow, that's a serious sheet, but it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because on the one hand,
and this
you can
simplified one is this for one whiskey. With
Yeah.
my grid, it's much easier, but it also takes time.
Yeah. So I mean, on the one hand, you can say that forcing yourself to take notes forces you to really analyze the whiskey and really get into it and really enjoy it. But on the other side of that is that the whole process of taking the notes, sometimes you just cannot be arsed. You just want to just chill out, drink a
relax.
whiskey, and just drink it, just appreciate it for what it is.
Yeah.
But all this note taking and I've got to tell people about this, and let's do some research on this, and
But
I've
you
got an
know what?
idea for a video. It's just like, I just want to drink whiskey
It's even worse
sometimes.
than that, Neil. For me, it's even worse than that. It's when I have the occasion, and I did have in the past, I'm not sure we'll have now for other reasons. I did the occasion to come across with a bunch of friends in our informal group. So crazy whiskeys that I will never afford myself, that sometimes these guys, we gather together, we have a whole meal on the side, because we're tasting too much whiskey, sometimes 12 or 13. Often I stop, of course, not more than that, guys, but it's already a lot.
Yeah.
And especially if they're all cask strength and very rare stuff. And sometimes the mind cannot follow the ingestion of the whiskey and the informations that goes with it. And these guys, they don't take notes.
Yeah.
I'm the only one who take notes and want to slow down the tasting because I want to know which version it is, which cask,
Yeah, exactly.
which
Yeah.
bottler and range and stuff. And I want to know the story behind it, and I want to write down everything. And often I cannot. So I ended up with this kind of gatherings to only note the version, the way it comes across 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth gram, etc., and only a few signs like stenographic to say I loved it or so or this. But
Yeah.
yeah, months after, I don't know, except if I see the bottle. So I have a memory that's not too bad about that. That's why I
Yeah.
did my video about the 15 exceptional, because there's some whiskeys I have, even if it's tiny now, and for some I try them only once, but this is so good and so special that I still have them here.
Yeah. So
But to describe them all the time, it's hard.
yeah, I'm going to jump into the comments a little bit here.
Yeah,
We've got
because I don't see nothing.
We've got a few good comments. So Tony Evans is telling me that keeping a drop sounds more trouble than it's worth, and how long before that last drop becomes different. Just enjoy the moment and move on. There's always another bottle. Now, this is something that Greg and I were looking to talk about in terms of, that's why I was saying it's a good segue into another talking point, which was, what am I doing keeping these bottles? That's why I did the whole oxidation, dissipation kind of video, because is this whiskey, can I even give it a true example now? We've got some other comments here as well, and it's Jimmy says, anyone who does reviews on neck pours or samples I pay no attention to. Now, I always try and do reviews.
I don't agree with that.
On full.
Sorry.
I always try and do reviews on full bottles, and I think there is a good reason for that, is because the neck pour can change. You can go on this whole journey. You've obviously got palate differences throughout the month or year that you drink it. So to have that full journey and then talk about the whiskey afterwards, I think is much more relevant than just buying a bottle, pouring a quick nip out of it, drinking it, and then doing a review on it.
I want to say something about that, because I saw this recently, let's say a year or two, and for me, I'm sorry guys if I come across rudely, but it's a trend. It's very trendy. It's very hype to say, oh, I don't like the neck pour. But what is the neck pour? It's the moment where the whiskey has been kept. Normally, if it's well sealed, well conserved, etc., at its maximum of power, intensity, and fully fruity, etc., etc. When you open it, of course, you have to let it a few seconds, minutes, half an hour, depending what it is, in the glass. But to say it's not relevant, for me, I don't agree.
I think
because I had loads of examples of whiskey that were degraded after the neck pour.
Yeah, I think what Jimmy's saying is that
best on the neck pour.
Yeah, I think what Jimmy's saying is it's different though, isn't it? So like to just do a review from a neck pour doesn't give you the full.
Just that, sorry.
Yeah, it doesn't give you the full kind of breadth of picture.
Okay, I misunderstood. Okay, in that case, I understand better. I agree, but to say it's not relevant to do it at all. So, for instance, if you have a beautiful experience at the neck pour and not mention it because you don't want, and you wait for, let's say, this level or lower to do your review, then what can we think? Because it's going to change. What can we think of some people, and there's some I love, so sorry guys, will do review only that. Then it's exactly the same as the neck pour. It has changed a lot, oxidized a lot. So,
or not, as the case may be.
You call it bottle kill reviews. It doesn't make much sense for me. But the people who do that, and this is a wave to Keith, a very warm and friendly, I think they do that because they know their stuff. I mean, they taste it so many times, they know it by heart.
Yeah.
But they forget to do a review. So at some point they say, "Oh, the bottle is finishing. I shall do the review."
Yeah, that's like me, and I've normally got my notes to fall back on as well.
But if it was someone, for instance, who was getting a bottle only at the end and reviewing only with that, I will say the same objections as Jimmy. I don't know who it was. Oh yeah, Barry Brosson Rod.
I'm showing everybody in the chat.
I haven't tried this one. Wanted to try the sherry blended whiskey. Was it whiskey or malt? I don't remember. Blended whiskey or blended malt. And I saw many comments that were not happy. So I said, oh, I'm not sure I'm going to buy it. It's one from 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know if you tried it.
No.
But
no.
yeah, so then there's also another, I don't want to be too long on this, so you tell me. There's also another factor that plays a huge role, especially at my house, unfortunately, is the conditions in the weather and the not air condition, the temperature and the moisture in your house.
Mm-hmm.
And in my house, it's no good at all. It's too hot most of the time, and sometimes too cold in winter when the collective heater is not on.
Okay.
So we have to wait for it. Now it might be the best period because it's cold outside, a bit cold.
Yeah.
And it's not too hot inside, as I can see, but we still have more than 20. So this can degrade a lot your bottle and the corks, which is another big question.
Exactly.
So there are ways to answer one of your previous questions, Neil. There are ways to prevent your bottle to degrade, and they are different. And I prepared some of them to explain people.
So let's kind of segue into that a little bit then. Since I have said that I've got a lot of bottles with just a tiny amount left, I know there's a bunch of people talking about the way that they do reviews is if they get a sample bottle, they will say that it's a sample and be upfront about that and say, obviously, I've got a limited amount of experience with it. It's not something I like to do because I just don't know where that sample's come from, whether it was neck pour, somewhere in the middle, at the end, after 2 years, who knows?
We know normally, I'm sorry. It depends how you get your samples, of course.
Yeah, and like I'm just talking about if I get a sample from somebody up north that I might know, or somebody that's watching YouTube and just sends me a sample. I don't know how long they've had that bottle, if they've left it open one night, if it's been in a decanter, how much dissipation's happened.
I think you have to ask.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I mean that's the main reason I don't review them. I only review full bottles because I like to do the full journey. But like, let's segue into the preservation of whiskey and how we can do it and whether it actually matters, because obviously my oxidization video where I tried to debunk the whole oxidation word or the whole thing that was happening and was much more veering towards dissipation, which I think the doc was as well. He kind of corroborated my story with actual science in the comments. But what I was worried about was these bottles where I've just got a tiny amount left in. Can I give them a fair review now? Because it's been so long since I can refer to my notes, but it's like, has it changed?
Yes or no? Yes, if your cork was in good state and you didn't open a lot the bottle over the years or the weeks and your flat, your house is also well tempered, temperature-wise, etc. And let's make it simple. So some bottles I have had some issues because of all I explained before in the oxidation, dissipation, call it what you will. So I put them into smaller content. This is master of malt sample, but we don't care. It can be no, it's not anonymous either, but I don't show the so it can be this kind of things you can find in pharmacies or online now easily, very cheap. So you can put it there, but you have to wait for a while, maybe a few weeks, for the whiskey to recover about the air it had before. It's a bit subjective terms, but I experienced that.
Okay.
Not always working, but sometimes it's spectacular. For a bottle that was almost, this one is almost, no, not at the worst, but not very full. It once you make sure you have the right, it goes onto this, and then you can also seal it with this, which is another trick. Parafilm, you can find it. It's a transparent film you put in there.
Yeah.
It's not something that will stick really to your bottle, so you got to put something else for a very short moment, electric tape, or for a longer moment, maybe.
Yeah, I like the old electric tape. It's good.
Stuff like that, ribbon. The other way to preserve, and it's called a wine preserver, by the way, is to use this, which is neutral gas, let's say.
Oh, here we go.
There's 3 kinds of gas in there, in fact. Yeah, so it's used for wine, but it can be used. So you put that in there, and not gonna do it for real because you have to to uncork it, to put it very close to the cork. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah.
And then you just push very few seconds only. It's explained on this. You can find it online. Then you recork it immediately, and then you wait for a couple of, let's say, I don't know, weeks, or depends what you're going to do with it. So you can make sure it will keep the neutral air to avoid oxidation or dissipation, or what you like. The problem is I'm not 100% sure it's efficient with peated whiskies, so I don't do it personally with peated whiskies. I had an issue with an old collector's bottle. I was having the impression the peat was lost with this process. I'm not sure about it. It's just a guess. So I don't use it for peated whiskies, but only for the others.
And is that
most of them? Basically, I put it in smaller content.
Yeah.
Even hot bottles like this. You can find these, for instance, when you buy Speyside. Sorry, it's a brand. Speyside Glenlivet water. It comes across in full or 35 CL. So basically, for this one, which is a very rare whiskey, Karizawa, 22 years old. I had another issue, if I can, you tell me if I'm not too long, which was the cork. That's why I didn't bought any Karizawa after that. The cork was already like this when I bought it. And there were some friends that had issues of bits of it falling into the bottle, even before they open it.
Yeah.
And when you understand, we understood not already when we bought them, but a few months or years later, it's going to be a collector's item. And some people have to return the bottle before opening it because there were bits of it. For me, it's not a good cork at all. And I was complaining about it, and they sent me a replacement cork. This is the replacement cork, which is exactly the same. So as you can see, maybe this is a, let me show you something that everyone has. This is Lagavulin cork, which is basically Diageo's cork for everything of their brand in their core range. And look at the difference.
Yeah.
The bits are much bigger, and they can really...
It's a much different color as well. Do you think that's from a different tree, or?
Well, maybe. It's not the same kind of cork. Liège, we say in French.
Softer.
That's obvious. This is Japanese, by the way, but Japanese did much better things. So, for instance, of course, recently, this is collectors as well, but every single cork from Nika is now a screw cap, that's it, in plastic. There's an argument about that, but for me, to my big surprise, it's a very good conservation process, the screw cap.
Well, I think
E-
this
e- Even the metallic ones,
this
but
is one of the things, though. I mean, we as whiskey drinkers, we like that cork noise, don't we? We like the whole
yeah,
process of uncorking, and so
but
the
this
screw top always screams of like cheapness. But I can
I
definitely
know,
see
but
why it
I
would be.
can show you a bottle I had in one of my videos, which is very expensive now, and it's a screw cap,
Yeah,
screw top.
yeah, yeah,
But this for me is one of the best cork ever made. It's the old-fashioned Nika brands, and oh no, not exactly. I'm sorry, because this one is more recent. But I'm gonna show you. Uh, there's some beautiful wood, but then I'm gonna show you another one. This one normally, this one is on the verge to be. I have to replace it soon. Look at this because
I see
it's
a crack in it.
beginning
Yeah,
to crack.
yeah,
But prior to that, and I'm sorry they have changed, there were a film on it, and there was some kind of plastic treated for food, of course.
hmm
That was unbreakable, and for me it was the best one. And also the top of the bottle was fitting exactly to it, so it never moved.
yeah,
For me, it was the best cork ever. But talking about cork, despite we all want the planet to be greener, etc., this is also one of the best cork ever, and it's a German whiskey because it's silicon, so it's plastic, kind
yep,
of plastic,
yeah,
but it doesn't move. It
yeah,
doesn't move, and it's
yeah.
perfectly hermetic.
It's never gonna rot. But do you ever
No,
wonder, Greg, about these plastics, these silicones? Is there any other degradation? Are we getting bits of plastic in the
I
whiskey?
was
What's it?
answered.
How does it
I
interact with
was
the alcohol?
I was answered. It was treated for food, so there's no harm chemically. But then also, of course, for people who are new to whiskey, you're not supposed to store your whiskey like that,
Yeah,
except if it's a metallic screw cap and you're gonna drink it very in the months or so.
yeah,
So because it's alcohol, it's not wine, so it's much stronger and will attack the cork much quicker.
yeah.
Um, but I have a terrible example, and I showed it already on my. And this has parafilm plus another kind of not super good, but um, this is a beautiful Bushmills, independent Bushmills, 24 years old, with a low ABV because it's done at warehouse. It's what I prefer often. This was a gift, a birthday gift. I opened it only this year because I was going to do a live with Whiskey Novice Jim.
hmm
But when I was offered it, the level was here.
Yeah.
And when I was about to do the video and I pulled the bottle of my cupboard, I realized the level was there.
Wow.
So I said, "Oh my God, what's going on?"
Yeah.
Because it's in a box, etc. It shouldn't have been like that.
Uh,
And I have to warn people about this. What happened? This is the cork. The cork is okay, no problem about the state where it is.
yeah.
The only thing is like some Glenlivet corks. When I touched it, it was very loose.
Yeah.
So when it's loose, what's going on? Evaporation.
Of course.
So damn, that was very. I didn't have the same sensations because I tasted it, and I said let's close it properly, gas it, close it, and then wait for a few months to see what's going on. So I haven't tried it yet. Um, Talking about cork,
There is quite a few distilleries that have got quite poor corks, though, isn't there? And
yeah,
quite slack
yeah,
ones.
yeah. I have to. One of my favorite Springbank has bad corks. I have to say
Yeah.
they
Old
break
Pulteney as
very
well. It's
easily.
not the best. I've had some issues
Yeah,
with Old
I
Pulteney.
had the same experience as you,
Mm.
and I replaced it very quickly. And this is what can happen always to corks. It's
The glue.
the glue. and the cork, because the problem in French, cork is a different name than the stopper. So for me, when I say cork in English, I think of the stopper,
Yeah.
but in English, the cork is the material.
Yeah.
So yeah, sometimes it can break like this, and you can do other things I wanted to say. It's at that time, Signatory Vintage had corks like that, which is not good in my opinion. They changed it, it's longer now, because when you open your bottle, it can crack very easily.
Yeah.
You're not sure it's gonna fit all the time.
Yeah, actually, I've noticed that with Edredauer. Sometimes they can be a bit slack. You know, the especially the Abisco bottles like that. They don't they don't give you that kind of tight pop. It just kind of goes thunk.
So it has to be tight. The wider it is, the better it is, because there will be less possibilities of breaking, like this. And then I like the new Edrington group. I mean, especially for Glenrothes and Highland Park. Not sure there are other brands that use it. Since 1 year or two, they have decided to have a double, I don't know how to call it, double process of opening the bottle. The first one is a twist with a screw, and then only, and when you have twisted it, only then you can uncork it.
All right, okay.
So you see, it's a very special one. First time I see that.
Yeah, that's good.
And I think it's very clever, very interesting.
I like that because it kind of doubles up the protection a little bit. Yeah. It's like the best of both worlds, isn't it?
I like that a lot. I like that a lot. Talking about, I don't know if I'm too long or...
No, carry on.
Talking about before doing what I did, that is, it was another issue because they didn't break. But for cork breaks, for me, the thing is, if you cannot put it off what is left with a screw pull, you have to cut it into a maximum pieces so it gets down into the bottle. But there's other options, I know that. Then you have to filter it, and you can use I don't have it here, a regular thing like, you know, this is for tea, but with a you can open it, or you can use different kinds of filters. Sorry, there's coffee filter, but there's also this one which is permanent, but you have to wash it sometimes.
Yeah.
Then you will need this. This is plastic, but it's better if it's glass.
Yeah.
You put it there, and you slowly put your whiskey. Then you will have to rinse very well your bottle if you want to put it back, or you can re-put it in smaller stuff.
Yeah.
And also this will permit you to see how much is left if it's not a new bottle, of course. And you need, of course, different funnels, big one, small one for samples.
Gotta love a funnel.
You can have also this, which is graduated. I don't know if you see it.
Oh,
so
yeah.
You know, if you don't have a small stuff like that.
Yeah.
This is for food. This is very cheap.
Yeah.
So there's solutions. I might do a video someday to explain all that. But basically, you have it all now very quickly. It's not perfect. There are more professional tools for sure, but these are easy to find, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
So you can save your bottle, and once it rinses, you can put it back. And of course, that needs, and my biggest advice to people is, when a bottle is finished, save your corks.
Keep the corks, yeah.
Because often there are different shape and different length and etc.
Yeah, well, it's interesting.
Some people, sorry.
It's interesting because Alan, where does he say it? Yeah, so the whiskey friend says, stick an Elijah Craig cork in the Abisco bottles He says it works a treat much better than the standard ones. So it kind of
Oh,
pays to have these spares kicking about. If only I had an Elijah Craig. I'd never had that before. So
oh, really?
yeah,
Oh, well,
Daniel,
something.
Daniel's saying that Ardbeg have the worst cork tops, the arseholes.
Oh,
I
oh,
can't say.
really?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've got a few
Well, I had
Ardbegs down in my
issues. I had
collection.
the problem is where I live. I had issues with a lot of brands, so I can't really say this brand or that brand, except when it's all the time, of course. Um,
And
but then,
Jimmy's just saying that he'd just drink the whiskey and spit out the cork. Is that an option?
no, for responsible drinking, no. But of course, if you have only wee quantity in the bottle,
So
no, it's our responsibility legally not to encourage that.
what
And
actually
everybody's
would
free to
happen to the
do.
whiskey though? What would happen to the whiskey if you left the cork in it, Craig?
Well, it will get, it depends how much time, but it will get poorly, I mean, in terms of full flavor. And if you let that a few months or years, it will become like the old whiskeys bottled a long time ago, sold in auction.
Mm.
They will have what we call the OBE effect, with Serge Valentin talks about it a lot. Old bottle effect, that means every flavors will be melted to some kind of average thing with only a few notes that are going
Distinct.
up. And sometimes it's enough when the whiskey is exceptional to be pleasant. Other times it's ruined.
Yeah.
But if it is a very heavily sherried whiskey, it can be interesting or mandatory according to the kind of whiskey it is. It's difficult to say in advance for every whiskey. It can benefit a lot for having several hours sometimes, or an hour, or some whiskey writers talked about 48 hours for some whiskeys. I don't know, but some need a lot of air
Mm-hmm.
to evacuate the sulfur, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
in the heavily sherried whiskies.
Yeah.
And for some others, if there is a default flow, which I experienced in a show, unfortunately, 25 years old Glenmorangie Portwood was completely corked.
Mm.
There was a problem with the cask. It was better after several hours, but it still had a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was some kind of phenomenon that appears that's I call wet wood,
Yeah.
or moisture in wood. I don't know how to explain that in English.
Yeah.
So it's kind of when the damp warehouse is giving too much sour and oxidated and bad woody notes, musty plus others that are not natural to the aging.
Yeah.
And then you cannot drink it. And it happened for me, unfortunately, 2 times in a row with 2 Ardbeg 10s. So I've decided not to buy any more Ardbeg 10s. That doesn't mean every bottle is bad, of course not. But I was so much put off by it that I decided not to buy anymore. But I
And
have other great Ardbegs with.
some things always, having done the whole YouTube reviewing thing and
Yeah.
kind of been and put yourself in the spotlight like that and gained a bit more experience, I'm now less likely, I think, to like be really harsh with a whiskey. And that's one of the other reasons why I want to go through a full bottle. But what I was wanting to ask you there was, is it, obviously it's happened with 2 bottles of Ardbeg 10, which is less likely, but if it was in close kind of quarters, could it have been like maybe a palate issue? Maybe you're going through some kind of stage where you're picking up those notes more, or was
No,
that even a
because
contributing factor?
No, because I had other whiskeys, not the same day necessarily, but not far. And also, I tried it several days in a row while I was trying something else after or before.
Yeah.
Still, of course, rinsing my palate, biscuits, neutral stuff, hot cakes and stuff.
Hmm.
So, and I'm sorry to say that, but I'm experienced enough to notice it. Plus, when I came back to the shop with it, like I said, someday, there was an expert. There was also a Diageo reference shop for all France. And he's a true expert, I know. And he analyzed the bottle, not chemically, but taste-wise,
Yeah.
taking his time in his cabinet, etc., off customers. And he said, "You're right. There's a real problem with the cask."
Hmm.
And 2 times he said, "You're right." So it's not
Yeah.
an invention to get money or stuff.
Yeah.
So he confirmed my impressions. So I'm not dreaming.
Cool.
But
Yeah,
he's very
I just
experienced.
sometimes wonder when I feel like my palate goes through phases, which I guess is probably another
Yeah,
talking
no,
point. But
then you have to stop and wait for other time, other days, other
yeah,
weeks, because
yeah.
there's a someone talked about palate fatigue.
Oh yeah, it's
Yeah,
real.
it exists. It
Yeah, yeah,
exists, and there's even worse when I almost lost every ability to nose because of a virus. Like I said, almost a year,
yeah,
and I wasn't sure I'm gonna get back my senses and
yeah,
drink whiskey again.
yeah. I mean,
That was
and
frightening.
exactly, yeah. I mean, they say that the smell is 75% of the taste as well. So it's
80%, I can confirm you of the doctors I saw when I had this. They say 80%,
yeah,
and when you lose, and I lost 50%, and 50% is already a lot. I can tell you, you don't know your coffee what it is. You don't know.
yeah,
You cannot even smell yourself if you have
yeah.
washed well and put some perfume or stuff. You cannot even notice it.
Hmm.
And also, I had anosmia and cacosmia, which is, I don't know if it's the same in English. Every whiskey was tasting like and smelling like shit. Can you
Man,
imagine that for a whiskey lover?
yeah. Oh man, that's torture. Like that's literally like the worst thing that can happen to a whiskey fan, isn't it? That you just lose your
Yeah,
sense of smell and taste, or it changes it to just everything tastes like shit.
like some kind of punishment.
Yeah, totally. I just wanted to bring you back to like a little something that you said about previously, where you were taking your whiskey and you were taking it from the big bottle and you were putting it into the little bottle, and you said something that you should leave it for at least sort of 48 hours because you'd experienced a change
Well,
in the whiskey. What
it
had you
depends.
experienced?
It depends of the whiskey. I had, for instance, I'm thinking of a fantastic bottle. I couldn't even do like Roy and put it in the trash because it's so beautiful and the memory is beautiful.
Yeah,
So it was a gift from a distiller of a bottle end, just for pleasure. Um, you know, we're gonna go into this biased review or not in there, but when it's so much passion, there it's even the bottle you have. If you love this brand, like I said in your video comment, there's so many ways to be biased. So it's not even serious to say only samples given or bottles given, and you're potentially biased. So I don't believe in that. Of course, there's a possibility of that, but there's many other possibilities. But then, let's put that aside a moment. So I was given this beautiful single sherry cask, single cask, and as it was the end, I tasted it first time coming back from a show, It was times that do not exist anymore, that you cannot have now an end of exceptional bottle as easily as before. It was old days. Uh, the bottle was fantastic, but I put it aside without sampling it. So that means 3/4 of the bottle stayed for months with a lot of air. And at that time, I didn't knew about gassing or even using a wine pump in plastic to put the air out and replace the cork. You can do that as well. So the bottle, the content degraded itself. It was too spicy, it was not good. And I said, oh my, what can I do? Then I put it in a sample, let it several weeks in order to have the least content possible between the liquid and the top of the content. And it recovered. And it was fantastic after that. But it was a question of sulfur, maybe a question of heavily sherried stuff. There's also, if you shake a bottle too much and you try it immediately after, it wouldn't be the same than if the bottle is still for a long time.
Okay.
So often when you buy a bottle and you uncork it immediately while it went into your car and a bus or everything, it's not, for me, it's not good to open it right away.
That's interesting.
You have to let it sit in the shelves a bit to sit
now
down.
I want to try
that. It's not scientific. It's just my guess, my practice. So reservations on this probably.
Well, that's interesting. I've never
thought
about it. Yeah, I've never thought about agitating a bottle.
Also, another thing. So I don't see the level, but I think it's half. When you have this and you don't put parafilm or anything to really do some protection, extra protection.
Yeah.
If the sample like this is, half full and you let it for weeks, you're not going to have the same experience than when you opened it. And it's even worse, way worse than the neck pour in the middle or 10 cl left in the bottle. It's more extreme.
Yeah.
And I experienced that with a beautiful gift that I left too much to retry it, and it was it was a mess, and I regretted it a lot of time. And also, the beautiful thing is also when your bottle is almost finished and it was something exceptional, if you protect your sample well, keep it in a sample, and if you can find some equivalent later on, you'll be very happy, and do it with your friends. I always drink my best bottles with friends because it's all about sharing, right? Whiskey. It can be fantastic to try, for instance, Glenfarclas from the 70s, from the 80s, 90s, and you will spot the differences. So even now, you see that our singleton of Dufftown is different, both our bottles. So who knows if the taste isn't different as well.
Yeah.
Mine in for 2012, mine.
Yeah, well, that's like another huge talking point, isn't it, about sort of batch differences and how they keep that sort of consistency going. It's amazing to me that they even keep certain consistencies, but it's actually one of the videos, as before when we were talking before we came on live, I was saying to Greg that I'm going to do an Aaron 10 video because I've got 3 versions now of Aaron 10, an old one, an old one, and then the new one. And to me, as I've drunk them full bottles in the past, I've noticed a difference. So I'm quite confident, I'll say this now, I might try a blind tasting and see if I can pick them out, which is always interesting. And never
be hard.
It never goes the way that you think it's going to go. It's always much harder than you think. But to me, the older Aaron was much more honeyed, and the newer one's much more herbal and kind of licorice-y.
There always been some herbal for me.
Yeah, totally.
There was some citrusy thing, spicy thing. In the old 10, I had also some almonds, getting sometime close to a young Glen Grant bourbon cask. The sherry cask, the new one, seems to be more harsher. Also, because if it's 7 years old, even if it's not disclosed, I learned it was 7 years old.
Yeah.
For me, it's a bit too young and a bit too harsh,
Mm-hmm.
but still a good whiskey.
Yep.
But some single casks were much more interesting than this one.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. So while we're on the topic of storage and corks and everything, let's talk quickly. Let's talk quickly about this. I don't want to like draw this out too much because I know this subject kind of annoys people a little bit as well. Is wetting corks. And
Oh,
right, so right, I did a video on wetting corks, and I posted it up on Facebook and got some good comments and stuff as well. And actually, it's amazing the sort of feedback. So, for instance, I got straight away. I was like, "Oh, this old topic again." A lot of people saying that. Oh, why do we need to go
no, it's
over?
interesting.
Yeah, why do
No,
we
it's
need to go over this
interesting.
topic again? I'm like, well, you don't need to talk about it if you don't want to. But so the crux of it is that there's quite a lot of people that do it, and there's quite a lot of people that don't, and there's
Yeah,
no kind of real, uh, some people say that they do it just because it's like a thing, just before they open it. But there is
yeah.
people
Maybe
that,
you should explain what you mean by wetting corks to some people, because I don't know if we have only connoisseurs,
I'm sure everybody in the
people on.
chat probably knows, but just in case you're watching this and you don't know what wetting corks is, essentially you have a bottle of whiskey stored like this, and every now and again you go like that and wet the end of the cork. And some people do it every month, some people do it every sort of 6 months or a year, and some people just do it just before they open it, just so that you get an easier pull from
Yeah,
the
but
bottle.
for
This was
me,
like, oh.
they only do half of the operation there, I have to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
What's the
like I said, I think in the comment of your video, which was very interesting, for me, there's two different cases, and the frequency depends of how your house once again is.
mm-hmm.
If it's something that's oh, and still my English fails me. If you have a house that's full on the not on the floor, I mean,
Yeah,
just
this high up. Yeah.
ground level.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Often when it's old stone or old house, you have some dampness, some
Yeah.
not moisture, but you have an ideal temperature for whiskey, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so then you don't have to wet your corks as much as if you have a flat like mine, where I have cork breaks, let's say 3, 4, 5 times a year.
Yeah.
But I recommend two different operations. Uh, for a bottle that's not open yet, I recommend doing just this, for a few seconds, let's say every 6 months or so, depending on how the temperature and moisture, like I said. But
Yeah.
for the open bottles, and this was shown me by a professional, and my biggest collector friends had it from a professional. I don't remember who exactly, so but it works for me a lot, most of the time.
Okay.
Not only you have to do that for open bottles, but it's the best way to see if they leak, by the way. You have to make a twist of complete turn to wet the inside part of the cork, not only the top of the cork, because it has no interest to wet only the top of the cork inside, but to put some liquid inside
Every
you
section.
see,
Yeah.
now it's wet. It's wet on all sides.
Yeah.
Doesn't show much, but so you have to do this. And sometimes you see that it's leaking. Then you have to change the cork
Yeah.
because it's not good anymore.
So yeah, you can get a bit of a silver lining, so you can see
I think
if
it's
it's
better
leaking.
like that, but it's only my opinion.
So
Then it's you have to check at the same time the state of the cork.
yeah.
If it's like you saw a bit too much with some strays and
Cracks and
begins
crumbly
to
bits.
be,
Yeah.
it's gonna, sooner or later, it's gonna break. And then when it's broken, you have this and you're not happy,
No.
especially if it is a special size of cork, which you don't have to replace it. So you're in trouble.
So it's an interesting point that you put forward there about it really depends on the temperature that you're keeping your whiskey at, where you're storing it. It's not something I covered in the video. Thinking about the science of it, then I'm thinking about if your bottles are warmer, does that mean that there's more vapor happening in the space that's left? There's more alcohol touching the cork in terms of vapor.
I cannot say scientifically yes, but in my guess, yes.
Yeah.
And there's more aggression of the cork. And
So,
of course, it's stronger for cast strength
yeah,
than for 40 or 43%.
of course. And is that your experience then, that you've had more
Yes.
cork breaks and cast
Yes.
strength stuff? Yeah. So if that's the
But
case,
not
then
necessarily only because it's too hot here.
if that's the case, though, I mean, so what we're saying is that in more extreme, hotter sort of circumstances, if you're storing your bottles in that way, obviously the sort of detrimental effect of wetting the cork, because let's face it, you are putting volatile alcohol on something that could degrade. So that's will
why
have
you must not do it long.
Yeah.
Just a few seconds.
So there's a balance, isn't there, then, between the kind of volatile vapor and, obviously it's not just alcohol that's in the liquid. We've got oils, we've got water, obviously, and we've got other stuff. So they must have some kind of lubricating effect. So if you stayed in the perfect place then, Greg, if you had like a nice stone property that was just like that nice cool 14, 16 degrees, would you wet your corks?
Probably not,
Yeah.
but I will check them.
Yeah.
Every now and then I will check them. And if people are not sure of what I'm saying, for instance, what my advice is, I would go and say to them, try what I say with your cheapest ones.
Mm-hmm.
And you see if you find it that in your place, the bottle stays better than without doing it. So don't do it with your best, most expensive bottles if you don't trust or if you're not sure.
Yeah.
And watch if there is a difference or not when the next time you open it, and in what condition is the cork.
It's good.
You have to watch that.
I feel better about this conversation now. I feel better about my kind of knowledge, because when I put out the video, I was just kind of like, I'm coming from a place of storing it in my house in Scotland, and it's normally pretty cool here. I'm not got a massive heating. It's not roasting in my house or anything. So I'm coming from that side of things. So it's very interesting to hear somebody who's coming from another point. I think some of the other people that wet their corks actually did come from warmer, humid environments, like sort of Japan and things like that. Sort of.
Also, another thing for people who might not be as passionate as us and new to whiskey, and I know some do not agree with me, but it is said by all professionals normally, if you have natural light, that's why you see a curtain, even if it's not enough, but I have another curtain before the window.
Mm-hmm.
Do not let your whiskeys see the light of day,
mm-hmm.
and a strong artificial light either, especially if there are everything, but especially if they are colored, because E150A degrades with light.
Okay.
And it might affect the taste.
Are you talking also, direct sunlight, or are you talking just general sunlight?
Direct.
Yeah, got to be direct. Yeah.
Also, many bottles are tainted, and there's a reason for that, because there's a lot of E51A in it. And also because in the beginning, for instance, Lefroy, the oldest Lefroys are in almost all now, not all, are tainted, Lagavulin, etc., because the beginning of Scotch history, they were using the same glasses, bottles as for wine. It's only around the late 80s that we came into transparent glass bottles for whiskey. If you see catalogs of auctions of very old bottles, it's very, very old, I mean, especially 19th centuries and before, you won't never see a transparent bottle.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And also, and it's dividing opinions, I keep the boxed because it's the place where, because it does the job of what I said before. And also, even if I don't have a lot of room, because it's the same place where I eat, drink coffee, tea, etc. So can be smells of food, and I don't want this to go on the bottles, and I cannot seal all my bottles. So this protects a bit your whiskeys.
Yeah, it's another interesting talking about. There's so many interesting talking points about whiskey, isn't there? About the sort of the branding, keeping the boxes, keeping the bottles. I mean,
I don't
just
see the chat. I hope people are not bored of what I say because it's long.
yeah, wow. I mean, in my office here, I keep a lot of the sort of the tubes, the boxes, the bottles inside them as well. And for the life of me, sometimes I just don't know why I'm doing it. But in general, I think it's like it's like a record of what I've had. Two, I'm actually really interested in sort of branding and stuff. I am quite a graphical, artistic kind of person, so I do like that kind of stuff.
I see that.
And I just think it's kind of interesting to just keep them hanging around. I kind of want to build a wall out of them or something, but
yeah, like Fruit Quick does that in the background of his videos, and it's wonderful. Yeah, I don't know if you have seen his videos. Also, there's another reason related what I said before, so not necessary for everyone, is that many bottles now are coming across because of coasts and also because of traditions. For instance, in the US and in indie bottlings, they come across without any box. So
yeah,
if you want to protect them, you have to keep some empty when you finish your bottles. I advise you to keep some different sizes boxes and tubes in
yeah,
order to be able to have protect others coming in later on.
yeah.
And there's
That's
another
a good point.
reason, and it's another tip. Sorry to be long, for which you should keep tubes, especially for you. It's when you go to a tasting, for instance, friendly tasting. If you put something between two glasses, two nosing glasses like this, the tube can help you transport them. You just put some plastic stuff, bubbles, and or even a journal, something between the two. And with a tube, you can bring also your glasses safely for your friendly tasting. I don't know.
Yep, yep. No, it's a good tip there. Okay, so man, we've covered quite a lot actually,
Yeah,
and
been long.
I was going to keep it. I was going to keep this to about 2 hours, so I'm planning on ending at 10 o'clock. So we've still got 20 minutes. Um, let's. We've covered a bunch of stuff. Let's, as we're whiskey tubers, let's have a little chat about the state of Whisky Tube. Now, again, I've done a sort of video about it in terms of my response to Ralphie and Eric.
Oh, that was very interesting.
Um, and I do feel like I'm, you know, I'm maybe not in the loop as much as some people are. So maybe I'm a bit naive.
Everybody can have their say. It's what I think.
Yeah, I thought I mean the whole thing about the video was more about Eric's kind of attack on whiskey tubers without being specific.
Yeah, I see, but
Yeah.
It's getting tough for this and for other topics because we can't avoid personal issues or commercial issues or political issues for some.
Yeah. But I mean, in your
Uh,
experience,
yeah.
and watching other whiskey tubers, I mean, for me, I don't watch a load. I watch some of the UK guys. I watch you. I watch some
Okay.
of the American stuff. I don't watch a huge amount of it, and I've been told that in general, where the problem lies is in the kind of bourbon review world in
Oh,
America. It's kind of rife with corruption, people getting free
also
bottles, getting flown out to
interesting.
distilleries.
So I didn't notice that in your video.
I
So
didn't know.
maybe
It was speaking to people afterwards
oh,
because obviously it
okay.
created a discussion. So people were getting in touch with me. They were saying, "Oh, it's rife in America. There's bourbon
Oh,
people just getting flown out all over the place, treated like sort
so
of
the
kings, getting free bottles."
so you might say it's something specific to the US, which I didn't know. Uh,
Yeah, I mean,
okay,
I don't know
interesting.
if it is or not. I mean, there's
I don't know
people.
either.
Yeah, I mean, there's people saying that it's not just specific to the US. There's it goes on all the time, kind of thing. But you know, just in my general kind of experience, which is I guess is quite small and quite blinkered, is the guys that I chat to, the sort of the main UK channels, yourself. I mean, I've got the utmost faith that nobody's you know, taking a paycheck or getting free bottles and being swayed.
Free
It's
battles, it can happen. Like I said, I gave you a very long answer under your video, so I'm not gonna go as long now.
hmm
So I recommend people first off to watch your video, not because of my comment, but because it's interesting what you say.
hmm
Uh, then, like I said, there's a lot of different ways to be biased, even if you don't get a bottle free or sample free. It's my opinion. Because when you're partial to a brand because you love it, you will probably find ways to find it good, even if it's average, unless you're super honest and you're really stepping back. And I put myself in, so I'm not blaming anyone about that.
hmm
Then after, like I said, and like many people commented, I think as long as you state things in the beginning or in middle, end, or comments, description section, you say, oh, by the way, this is a gift bottle or a gift sample. As long as you say that, I think if people knew or watch you on a regular basis and they're watching the ones where you say, it is not a gift sample, I bought the bottle. Sorry. If they if they notice a significant difference between those two kinds of reviews, I think they are intelligent enough to, excuse
No worries.
me, to decide whether it's biased or not.
hmm Yep.
Even like for other topics, I I think we're not children, so we are people who drink whiskey are adults, so they can make the difference, I guess, between BS reviews and serious ones, unless they're lying very well. I don't know, but
Yes. I
I
think
don't know.
I think there's also the thing about though it's even just that slight. 'Cause a lot of people were talking to me about the psychology. So a lot of people were saying it's just even that slight little thing. So for instance, Greg,
Yeah.
I give you this bottle of Berry Brothers. It's actually exceptional anyway. It's really nice. But because I've given it to you, you're immediately going to give it like a little bit more of a favorable review
Oh yeah,
because it's
maybe.
gifted. And
Uh,
one of the things is that you don't want me to be disappointed because I've gifted it to you. So when you do a
but
review on it and I watch it, I'm like, oh, I didn't like it. Great. Oh, you know.
or
So
there's another way of doing that, and I think I did it already for one of the most difficult, and I can speak about that because I did it. One of the most difficult videos to do was when RBK Distillery, which is a new one, send me a bottle the year after they send me a sample. The first sample was already very generous. And then I didn't expect anything, and they sent me the full bottle because they were happy of the first review. But the problem is the the edition was way less and better than the first one.
Mm.
And I was very annoyed with that, but I was obliged to review it because I announced it to my viewers.
Yeah.
So it's another case, maybe even. And I tried to be the most honest possible. And I said, okay, this has this on the positive side, but I'm sorry, there's still this note that I don't like on the negative side. And they were not happy about what I did. But at the same time, I presented the background of the bottle. I explained why it's interesting, why it's rare, and why I accepted the bottle also, because it's the first rye made in Scotland for 100 years. And it's an experiment. It's a family-owned distillery. It's something I wanted to encourage when I got the first sample. There were issues with the first samples. I stated it. There were issues with the second, with the bottle. I stated it. I explained to people. I also write to the owner, like I always said, that they have to accept. For example, for anything, I always say you have to accept that the review will not be necessarily positive. Otherwise, I can accept the gift. And usually everybody's okay with that.
Yeah.
But this time, I think they were not very happy. They were cool enough not to do a campaign of something negative towards me, etc.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't bother if I'm gonna receive something again or not. I will be disappointed if I don't have a 3CL sample, let's say, to try it, but I don't ask for it. But I'm excited by the project. That's why also I didn't say I refuse everything. Then I understand people can be mad at me because they think, Greg, you're not honest. You accepted something. But like I said, people can be biased with something they buy because they're crazy about the brand, or they're crazy about this kind of finishes, or this kind of, because this is a, let's say, a private shop, exclusive for the shop. They know the guy which runs it, etc. There's many possibilities of being biased, in my opinion. Like I wrote before your comment. And also there's another possibility to get bias, like you said, or many or several people say, it's the fact that you're buying whiskey yourself.
Yeah.
But you did an effort, and the whiskey was more expensive than you thought at the end of the day. And then you kind of feel or might be biased because you want to
like
find it good because because it costed you money.
Yeah.
So I have also this case.
Yeah.
I had with the PCE 16, but the good thing is that I was very happy with it, and also we'll see because I'll probably review it for real after the reaction video I did, which is, like I said before, two things different. That's why I didn't say whiskey review, mind you, but whiskey reaction, like for the music videos. If I'm disappointed the second time, I will say it. But the first time, my experience helped me to, I don't know how I can say that, to give an extra perspective that probably many reviewers didn't have. There's no disrespect for them, but I explain why. It's because in this poor child at 16, I found notes that were very close to some Brora.
Yeah.
And for me, it changed completely the price perspective. Because if I felt, because I don't have any Brora home, I felt like suddenly I had a Brora home or something that approaches Brora. And when you say Brora, you had to add a zero to to what I paid. So then it becomes bargain. What is expensive becomes bargain. Very weird situation. But I hope it will last on the second and after neck pour. Otherwise,
Yeah, that, I mean
But I
that.
will say it. I will say it to people. I
Yeah,
will do a review.
it's a good point. And then
I
if
don't know if they,
what happens though, if people, I, I, I tend to find that if you go through somebody's YouTube channel or go through somebody's blog or whatever, how many whiskies do you find that they're being quite negative about?
to be
Normally,
honest,
it's
not
pretty good.
much.
There's normally most people are like, yeah, this is great. Oh, I'm getting this, I'm getting that, and
But I see negative reviews, by the way, and when it comes from friends, which I know they, again, sorry if it comes across pretentious, but that don't have my experience on this or that whiskey.
yeah,
Um, and often it comes from people who are new to whiskey. Um, and I have an example in mind of people I like a lot. There are two people, so you see what I mean, maybe. The famous Johnny Walker Blue Label argument.
mm-hmm.
That's lots of young generation YouTubers that don't like this whiskey. And I tried 5 different versions of this one, and I tried a lot of Johnny Walker from different eras, from the 60s to now, etc. So I have another vision, maybe biased in a historical way. I don't know.
uh,
While they are biased because they only drink cask strength most of the time for some. I don't know. You can be biased in different ways. But I don't think biased is a good term in that case. Because, like I said, and it's something even different. Sorry if I'm not very coherent there, but at the end of the day, um, and it reminds me because I'm a painter, when I was doing for some friends the tour guide, private tour guide, free in French museums of modern art and contemporary art. And I like to do that for some people that are open minded, and I do them a 2 hours tour. And I said, okay, and you can do the same for the whiskies, I think. And I say, okay, this is a canvas from this painter. Here's the context in which he made it, historical, etc. Here's what he wanted to do. Then after, if you want my opinion about it, I can tell you if I like it or not and why. But if you don't like it, I cannot do anything because it's a matter of colors and taste. And this belongs to you, not to me, even with my knowledge of art.
mm-hmm.
So I will say the same for the whiskey. At the end of the day, it's what do we search in a whiskey? We not necessarily search for the same thing,
Yep,
not necessarily search for the same thing ourselves at every time. Sometimes you come back late, tired, you just want to relax with something easy.
yep,
Other times you want some punch in the face of Pete or something else.
totally.
And otherwise, you want something you need to dig in more and search what it is, etc., even if it's difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So I cannot blame these people, and I, I'm encouraging them probably to try the same whiskies, even if they're going to be batch variations in 5 years' time, and see
Mm-hmm.
if their impression change with their experience in between,
Yep,
things like that.
yeah, totally.
And also, as many people today, sorry, I come from the praise of blended whiskeys, and I learned about blended whiskeys, and I tried and do
Mm-hmm.
myself blended whiskeys home, modestly, not professionally.
Yeah,
Okay, so I come from a different perspective about the Johnny Walker Blue than people who tried 90% or 100% of the time single malts, and for some only cask strength, or most often cask strength.
yep,
You cannot ask the same to your whiskey, the same experience, the same taste, the same oomph. You cannot.
mm-hmm.
There are exceptions, mind you, at 40% or 43,
Yeah,
but for most of the time, you cannot have the same experience because the grain is softer most of the time. The grain whiskeys.
mm-hmm.
That's where they bring its softness and roundness.
Yeah,
when not too young, they can be harsh as well. But
Yeah, yeah, I know
you see what I
exactly what you
mean?
mean.
It's not as simple as some think, and they discard the whiskey quickly because they didn't like it, so they think it's crap.
Yeah,
And others can come and okay, it's crap. I'm not going to buy it.
yeah, yeah.
Then, of course, there is a price perspective that adds another layer to it. It's easier to find something interesting if it's cheap than if you're not satisfied with it and it's very expensive.
Exactly, yeah. So I've got a little bit of a confession then. I've never tried a Johnny Walker to my knowledge. Um,
Oh,
I don't think I've
it's not
ever.
mandatory. It's not, nothing is
I
mandatory.
just don't think I've ever had one. And the reason I've stayed away from it is I don't know. I think it's partly I must have picked up some stuff that other people have said, but equally I think it's my own kind of perception. The way I perceive Johnny Walker is much more of a kind of well marketed, kind of blended kind of thing that I just I'm not that interested in. I've never felt the need to go, oh, I'm going to pick that up. But I mean, I started my kind of whiskey journey on a
Mm.
blend, which was just white and Mackay. I quite enjoyed a white and Mackay, and then it
Okay, which is very different
just grew
from
from
Johnny
there.
Walker.
So,
Mm.
okay, potentially one of the last questions I've got for you then is,
Yeah.
if I was to have a Johnny Walker, what
Hmm.
one should I get? Bearing
I
in
would
mind that
say
I'm quite experienced with whiskey.
I would say the Black Label 12
Yeah.
or the 18. Well, it's changed name now. It's Platinum. Haven't tried a recent batch, but try first the double black. You see, it's more smoky, but both double black or 12 Black Label. But don't search for something that will jump out of the glass like Lafroig, or
Mm.
think rather of a signature, of smoky signature. But then I hope you will have a good batch. The biggest issue for me with blends as the amount of liquid that is sold, I think
Yeah.
12 bottles of Black Label every second, something like that in the world.
Wow.
So the amount, I'm not sure of the numbers. Sorry, guys. It's on my website. I did a whole thing about Johnny Walker, the 30 whiskeys, history, everything I could. Because I had a master class and I tried a lot of things after the master class as well. So yeah, what the thing that is not, I think, is not questionable is the signature of the brand, taste wise. When you try a 12 years old Black Label, you cannot mistake it with another blend. I think it's very distinctive. Bear in mind there's Talisker, Lagavulin, and Colilla in it. There's
Mm.
Linkwood, Cragganmore, there's stuff like that.
Yeah.
Then, if you want to get closer to, and this is for the audience as well, of course, if you want to get closer to blended malt or single malt experience, there's one reference that stands aside because it's 43% and because it's blended malt only. Is the green label, 15 years old, which is for me very good.
Okay. All right. I'm writing these down just so uh,
Ah,
I don't forget
let me know after that.
because
And
I've been meaning to like just look at it because I know a lot of other whiskey tubers kind of talk about it and
but think there are, for the first references, think that there are grain whiskies in majority in them.
mm,
Have that in mind when you taste it. A 75% for most of the blends in the market. Of
mhm.
course, some compass books are 50% or 60% or more of malt towards grain, and there are other references, but most of the time you will have 70% of grain. That's why it's so cheap compared to single malt.
Mhm. Yeah, totally. I've actually got I got a single grain whiskey from Whiskey Broker. Um,
Oh, this is a beautiful indie butler.
yeah,
Of the
oh,
only ones I tried, and
excellent
I
value as well, really good value. And
36. Which
the single
yeah,
grain as well was uh
which age you do remember, and distillery? No, you don't
it
remember.
is a 14-year-old
Oh,
and the
starts to be
distillery
interesting.
is can't remember what the distillery is.
Cameron Bridge, maybe Cambus or Port Dundas, Invergordon.
I can find out. I'm right at my computer, so I can find out.
Strathclyde, maybe. I think
Strathclyde.
I can name them
I think
all.
it was a Strathclyde.
Okay.
I think
It
it might
belongs
be
to Pernod
Oh,
Ricard,
wait,
this one.
wait. I think I found it. I think I found it. Was it Girvan?
Girvan, okay. It's William Grant's, if I'm not mistaken, the owner.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I think it is. I think it's a Girvan.
Ken Barry Bross did in the past beautiful Girvan. Was it 12 or 15? I don't remember, years old. I almost bought it and I said, okay, later on, and then it was gone.
It's definitely this one. So a 14-year-old Girvan distillery, single cask bottling, single grain Scotch whiskey, 59.1%.
Okay.
14 years old. £35.
The prices are crazy at Whiskey Broker.
So
I don't live in the UK, otherwise I can tell you I will buy a lot of Whiskey Broker.
The weird thing about this one though is obviously it's not a single malt, it's a single grain.
I don't care if it's good, it's good.
It is good, and I'll tell you why I think it's good. And the difference between the sort of single malt and the single grain, as I see it, in terms of this whiskey tasted what I think a good Irish whiskey should taste like.
Oh,
because
well, there's some things in common.
Yeah, because normally when I taste an Irish whiskey, I get this kind of taste. I'm like, okay, I kind of get it, but I don't quite click into it. I'd much rather have a Scotch than an Irish whiskey. And I've not really had that many great sort of Irish whiskies. I've had a couple of sort of semi-decent ones. I've got a Sexton and I've got the Redbreast 12. They're all right. But this, being cask strength, a little bit older, and it's just like, I was like, okay, wow, this is maybe what like a cask strength Irish could be, which is a lot of people have said to me, get the Redbreast cask strength.
Mostly, which is the difference with the Redbreast, is they're most of single grains, not always, and I had a beautiful example, which is not, but in sherry cask, most of the grains are raised in American oak bourbon, ex-bourbon casks. So it enhances the pastry profile that often you find in the buttery pastry, caramel, that you find in single grain, especially with age. And often it is likely to say that the best single grains are often the older, I mean, over 20 to 25 years old, you will find the best because they get complexity with age, which some beautiful single malts not necessarily need. But I rarely came across a beautiful single grain that is very young.
Yeah.
And when it was not a Scottish one.
Yeah.
So, but it can be.
Well, there you go. I mean, it's 10:05. I think that's been 2 hours. We've been chatting some serious whiskey.
We could go long on this, right? We could go long time. It was a real pleasure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, do you know what, Greg? I love speaking to people like you because your whiskey knowledge is like obviously way up here, and mine is way down here. So
I don't know. I like to share my experience and also to be open to what people say. So I'm not just I don't know. You see what I mean?
Yeah, totally. And I mean, it's been great. I love to learn of people, and like I said,
but you're gonna learn yourself alone over time, trying more things. And I think it's good you're currently trying single grains, because when you're gonna go back, and I advise you maybe to try some single grains reduced to 43 or 46, if you can in the future.
Yeah.
Because then when you're going to go back to the blended whiskeys, I think over time you're going to recognize, not necessarily the distillery, but because it's hard, but you're going to recognize that, oh, these notes are from the single grains that in this blend. Yeah, and when you get to this, you'll be very happy because you will deconstruct in your head and understand better what is a blended whiskey.
Yeah. Well, That's the kind of stuff that really does interest me. I'm very much about the smell and the taste. I'm always trying to expand my palate a little bit. So I'm buying sherries, I'm buying cognacs,
But
things that affect,
it's good to try other spirits. I think it's very good.
especially when they're aged.
Yeah,
When you're
yeah.
getting cognac finishes and you're getting brandy finishes, sherry finishes, all this kind of stuff, cider finishes.
And you can
It's
recognize the influence in these.
of course, yeah,
And also, I've been fortunate enough. It's not only knowledge per se; it's also experiences. In the early 2000 and even a bit later, I was very lucky to participate to some contests that do no longer exist the same way now. I have to complain. In which, for instance, we were invited to deconstruct. Yeah, talking about Johnny Walker 12 Black Label, I had in a contest I had to deconstruct it. There were a bunch of samples before me, all anonymous,
right,
and the maker was there, the master blender, and we had within an hour or two to reconstruct, sorry, the blend and try to get the closest we could,
wow,
and trying every elements of it. Of course, it was a cheaper version with only 6 or 8 samples, not 60 that are in it,
yeah,
around 60. But we had an idea of the how this single malt and this single grain plays. It's like a painting or a symphony.
yeah,
Each instrument has to play its part. Some are
yeah,
louder than others, and they don't cover the same spectrum. So once you do that, and if you had a blind tasting someday with different kinds of whiskeys, I think you will learn more to recognize these after when you go back to blends. I love this. I not everyone likes this, but I love this deconstructing.
yeah.
And even sometimes with other kinds of whiskeys, I had the chance to do that. And it's very interesting, especially for the ton, Balvenie ton. Uh, at the time, there were only 9, for instance, different casks instead of 40, 30 now. We did an evening, a private evening with a brand ambassador, and there were casks from the 70s to the 90s or so.
Hmm.
Each one was different. And then we tried the Balvenie ton, the bottle that gathers all the samples. And then some of us say, "Oh, I recognize this, and I don't like this. They should have put off the cask, etc." So this provoked a very interesting debate between all the people there. And
So
the more you do these experiences, the more you learn about how to construct a whiskey.
yeah,
Even a single malt, a regular single malt, which isn't a single cask, it is composed by a master blender. It's what often people forget. So you get a lot of different casks, different recipes, and you can do very different things. You can say Glenlivet 12 years old, for instance, you can make it very differently, whether you choose that or this or that type of casks, even with the same age, and sometimes even in the same category, but don't want to go too much.
I think you should do more videos like this on your YouTube channel. You should do more.
Or you may be, but sometimes I just need someone to conduct it or to ask questions, and I
Right.
have difficulties
I'll I'll
to
I'll
be
send
short, as you see.
I'll send you some questions and some ideas, and you can make videos out of them. Then that'd be cool.
Why not?
It's been a great night, Greg. We've had we've
For
had
me
like
as well.
18 people at the peak in the
Okay,
chat.
it's a bit frustrating not to see the chat, but I will
Yeah,
probably watch this in replay to see
yeah. Get the
the
chat again.
comments, maybe answer some questions. I don't know.
We've still got 5 people in listening to us, which I think is amazing for like
Very brave.
after 10 o'clock on a Saturday night. You know, people are busy on a Saturday night doing other stuff, so
Thank you so much, guys.
it's not a great time to be doing a whiskey live. To be fair, but thanks for everybody
I know
for,
there's lots of
for
events
tuning in.
everywhere, every
And
day.
I think what I'd like to do is just finish by saying, head over to Greg's channel, give him a sub. So anybody that's watching this on my channel, head over to Greg's channel, give him a sub, send him some questions, ask him some really deep whiskey questions, and say make a video out of it, and we'll get some really interesting stuff out of Greg. He's obviously got a huge amount of knowledge and loves to share it. So let's just get asking him some questions. I think that's a good place to end it, Greg. I think we're gonna end it there.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for coming on, man. It's
thanks for inviting me, and thanks to the people who watched us, and hope it was interesting.
It definitely was interesting. I found it interesting, so I'm sure everybody else did as well. So, well, thanks everybody. Again, head over to Greg's channel and give him a sub. Cheers.
And Neil once.